Hi, welcome to Anaprime Recap. You're stuck in a school with a crazy, bloodthirsty principal, watching your friends get eliminated one by one. We continue our journey in the anime Danganronpa, episodes 4 and 5. Maizano, Inashima and Leon were the first to be eliminated from Hope's Peak Academy, led by Principal Monokuma. According to the rules of the game, every time a school trial takes place and the imposter is discovered, a new world expands. This means that a new floor of the college is opened. Therefore, from now on, students have access to the first and second floors of the building. Students begin exploration. On the second floor, they discover the existence of women's and men's locker rooms, a library and even an Olympic-sized swimming pool. In the library, Tagami finds a computer. The boy tries to access it, but the device is broken. In the drawer of one of the tables, Naegi finds a letter written by the principal of that school, where he informs that the place would be abandoned and that, in the near future, as soon as the problems were solved, the school would resume its activities. From this, Tagami theorizes that while the college was at a standstill, someone took over the building and created that damn game. This person is the one who is, in fact, behind Principal Monokuma. Hearing this, all the students are terrified and Asahina suggests that they go swimming to calm things down. Some of her classmates are up for the idea and walk to the locker room. Arriving there, the girl realizes that the door is locked. At that moment, Monokuma appears and informs the students that to open the locker room it was necessary to use the electronic card. Thus, girls could only enter the women's locker room, while boys could only enter the men's locker room. If a boy secretly enters the girls' locker room, he will be eliminated. And the opposite also applies. Also, it is forbidden to lend your e-card to another person. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Naegi is asked to judge a competition between Owada and Ishimaru. The dispute takes place in the sauna. Whoever can stay inside the longest even with the high temperature will be the winner. After 40 minutes, Naegi gets tired of watching them and goes to his room. The next morning, the boy is surprised to see his classmates, Owada and Ishimaru, who were once sworn enemies, hugging and laughing together. As the students were eating their breakfast, Monokuma appears on the screen and asks everyone to come to the gym. There, the principal says that it is being very boring to wait for the next culprit to show up. So he wants to give the class an incentive. The bear hands out envelopes with each student's name. Inside them, there are shameful memories of the past or a secret they want to hide. On Naegi's envelope is the information that the boy wet his bed until the 5th grade. The psychopathic principal gives a deadline of 24 hours for a death to occur. Otherwise, all the information on the envelopes would be leaked. Naegi wonders if any students would kill to hide the information on their envelope. As the boy's secret was no big deal, he believes that no one would commit a crime just to hide an embarrassing situation from the past. The next day, the students are informed by Monokuma that something has happened to one of their classmates. As they go to investigate, Tagami notices that the locker room doors are open and the director justifies it by saying that, during investigations, all doors are unlocked. Tagami and Naegi then enter the women's locker room and both find their friend, Fujisaki, dead. On the wall beside her was writing saying, "Blood fever." For Tagami, the person who committed that crime, did it for pure pleasure. Ishimaru arrives soon after and is terrified of that scene. After 3 students find the body, Monokuma announces the crime and informs them that the school trial will soon begin. Minutes later, everyone gathers at the place where the victim was crucified. The cause of death had been a heavy blow to the head and the murder weapon had been a dumbbell. Her arms were tied by an extension cord that usually stayed in the library. Another detail is that Fujisaki's electronic card had disappeared. Kirigiri goes to check her late friend's electronic cards and notices that Leon's card isn't working. Sakura comments to Naegi that the night before, during training, she had dropped her protein shake on the mat, but mysteriously the stain was gone. The boy also notes that on the wall of the women's locker room there was a poster of a girl in a bikini, while in the men's locker room there was a poster of a male band that, in general, were the girls who accompanied. To top it off, Celes reveals that the last time she met Fujisaki, the girl was in a hurry and carrying a bag with a coat. Tagami interrupts the conversation and says that the crime was the work of genocider Sayo, a serial killer who appeared on the news days before the students entered that school. The boy explains that in that library he had found some secret police documents, which revealed details of the crimes committed by genocider Sayo. Naegi questions him if those documents were true, but Tagami says yes, claiming that he had already seen documents similar to those in his family's library. When opening the file, Naegi could see that at the scene of all the crimes committed by that psychopath, there was a message written, "Blood fever." The documents also state that all the victims were men and that the lethal weapons used in the crimes were scissors. Tagami says that after analyzing all those cases, he concluded that the culprit could be suffering from dissociative personality disorder. There is also the fact that all genocider victims, after death, are crucified, but this detail is known to few people. Asahima appears and interrupts the conversation, saying that Fukawa locked herself in her room and wanted to talk to Tagami. She opens the door and apologizes to the boy, saying that she couldn't keep her promise, but she won't allow the genocider to continue doing what he wants. The girl closes the door again and then Monokuma summons the students to start the trial. In the trial room, the students begin their arguments. Celes claims that since there were bloodstains on the carpet, they could say the crime took place in the women's locker room. Tagami then points out genocider Sayo as the imposter, considering the message left on the wall and the crucified body. The students are surprised to find that a serial killer was among them and even more surprised when Tagami reveals that Fukawa is the genocider. Asahima counters this, saying that Fukawa fainted at the sight of blood, so she couldn't kill anyone. At this point, Naegi remembers that police records said that genocider suffered from dissociative personality disorder. Therefore, Fukawa, while being guilty, was innocent. The girl is disappointed with Tagami, as he had promised to keep her secret. She faints, but soon gets up. Her body had been taken over by her other personality. Seeing that creature, all the students are terrified. They can't imagine that that monster lived inside someone like Fukawa. Tagami claims that in order for her secret not to be revealed, genocider claimed her first victim inside the school. But the girl says that this time, she wasn't to blame. Most students don't believe her words. After all, how could they believe a psychopath? But Naegi recalls that, according to the records, all the genocide victims were killed by scissors. Furthermore, the crucifixion was also different. Unlike what happened to Fujisaki, who had her wrists tied with an extension cord, the psychopath crucified his victims using sharp scissors. Genocider completes by saying that all her victims had something in common. They were all men. The crazy woman only killed guys she was attracted to. After reflecting, Naegi says that there was only one person who could commit that crime to try to frame the girl. That person was Tagami, as the boy knew about genocider's crimes before arriving at that school, as he himself said he had access to police documents in his family's library. While everyone questioned Tagami, Naegi reveals that the men's and women's locker rooms may have been switched to confuse the deductions about that crime. He remembers that the posters for the men's and women's locker rooms had been swapped, as was the rug Sakura had soiled with her drink. The boy concludes that Fujisaki had been killed in the boys' locker room and then transported to the girls' locker room to make it look like the crime was committed there. Hagakuri asks how she could have gotten into the men's locker room and Kirigiri reveals that Fujisaki was actually a man. The girl discovered this the moment she was examining the body. Tagami is surprised to hear this and Naegi says he believes he is not the culprit as the imposter probably already knew that Fujisaki was a boy. Tagami reveals that he had been the first to find Fujisaki dead in the girls' locker room. So he decided to set up the whole scene to shake the real culprit. That way it would be easier to find him. The deductions continue and Celes questions how the imposter would have managed to get into both locker rooms without being punished by the principal. Kirigiri reveals that she managed to find her late friend's electronic cards in the lobby, but since Leon's card wasn't working, the culprit must have used Meizono's or Inishima's card to enter the women's locker room. Therefore, the imposter must necessarily be a man. Monokuma rules forbid lending the card to someone else, but in this case the card was stolen. Therefore, the culprit could use it without suffering any kind of punishment. Naegi questions Celes about seeing Fujisaki the night of the crime. The girl reveals that he was holding a bag and inside it was a sports coat. The pieces were of several different colors and Fujisaki had gone to meet someone to deliver the coat. So Ishimaru concluded that the imposter had chosen a coat just like Fujisaki's. Hearing this, Awada ends his reasoning by saying that the culprit should have a blue coat like Fujisaki's and his was black. In that instant, Kirigiri and Naegi solve the case. They question the boy about how he knew that Fujisaki's coat was blue, since at no time did Celes mention the color of the coat. The story that Fujisaki wanted to hand over the coat was just a ruse to get the culprit out and apparently it worked. Naegi reviews the case and deduces that during the night, Fujisaki took his training bag, which had a blue coat, and walked towards the men's locker room, since, in fact, he was a boy. There, he planned to find someone who later turned out to be the perpetrator. While Fujisaki was distracted, the culprit takes the gym weight and attacks the boy. After that, he comes up with the idea of swapping items in the changing rooms to disguise the crime scene. To enter the women's locker room, the imposter used Meizono's or Inishima's electronic card. Ishimaru despairs and claims that some mistake is happening. He couldn't accept the idea that his best friend had committed such a brutal crime. But to the boy's sadness, Awada confesses to being the imposter. Voting begins and all students except Ishimaru vote for the biker. To avoid accusing his friend, Ishimaru votes for himself. But, by majority vote, Owada is found to be the culprit. Therefore, his fate is to suffer a painful execution. When asked why he did that, Owada reveals that when he was at risk of having his secret revealed, Fujisaki asked for his help to start training. He wanted to abandon his feminine identity and become a strong man like he believed Owada was. Before the execution, Monokuma also reveals the boy's secret, which he never wanted others to know. The director says that Owada was responsible for his brother's death. The boy says that he wanted to surpass him, as he had formed the biggest motorcycle gang in Japan. When he retired, Owada was chosen as his successor, and on the night his brother was to step down, the boy insisted on competing with him. Midway through the race, Owada was reckless and tried to catch up to his brother. At that moment, he ended up putting himself in front of a truck and, to save him, his brother ended up dying. Owada considers himself weak for allowing this to happen and also for not having the strength to tell the truth. On the other hand, Fujisaki was strong enough to face his weakness and try to overcome it. This aroused envy in Owada and, in a fit of rage, the boy broke Fujisaki's skull. After all these revelations, Monokuma begins the execution. Ishimaru tries to stop him, but at this point there is nothing the boy can do to save his friend. Owada is strapped to a motorcycle and taken to a globe of death. Inside, the bike rides at such high speed that his body liquefies, turning into butter. While Ishimaru screamed in anguish for having lost his partner, the other students suffered silently and wondered who would be the next eliminated. Will any of the students make it out of that school alive? And who do you think will be the third imposter? So what did you think of this anime? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more anime recaps. See you next time.